Welcome to A Well-Designed Business with your host, LuAnn. LuAnn has a lifetime of experience building a multi-million-dollar business with her husband and cousin, and she knows the challenges you face in your interior design business. LuAnn brings you real-life answers to your most pressing problems, as well as practical strategies to explode your interior design business. So, let's get to the business of interior design.
Hi, welcome to another episode of A Well-Designed Business. Today, I'm going to introduce you to Landy Gardner Interiors in Nashville, Tennessee. Landy Gardner Interiors approaches their diverse clientele with a unique philosophy, focusing on individual needs, blending the comfort of familiarity with the elements that are fresh, using techniques proven and untried. How a client works, plays, and entertains and relaxes all must be considered according to the Landy Gardner way of designing. In 2001, Landy Gardner was named Southeast Designer of the Year by the Atlanta Decorative Arts Center, and he has been named Designer of the Year by Nashville Magazine. He's been published in Southern Living, Southern Accents, Traditional Home, Nashville Lifestyles, Showcase of Interior Design, Southern Edition, Better Homes and Gardens, Boulevard, Southern Rooms, Interior Design, From Miami to Houston, Spectacular Homes of Tennessee, Atlanta, the cover of Veranda, and a feature in Veranda's 20th Anniversary Edition, 20 Years of Memorable Rooms. Landy has also appeared on HGTV's Interior by Design. Landy Gardner Interiors design projects include private residences in Tennessee, New York, California, Florida, Alabama, Indiana, Ohio, West Virginia, and the Bahamas. He has designed rooms for the Tennessee Governor's Mansion, the Junior League of Nashville's designer show houses, and the Judd House in Dalton, Georgia. His commercial work includes health spas and executive offices in Nashville and office buildings across the country for Hospital Corporation of America, as well as restaurants and bars for strategic hospitality. Today, Landy's daughter Dionne joins me on the show. The original interview that we had scheduled for September 6th was to be between the three of us, and this is September 6th of 2017. And we struggled for 25 or 30 minutes to get the technology on their end so that we could hear both of them talking on the interview. And it just didn't happen. We ended up rescheduling the interview for a week later, and that interview had to be rescheduled. And I'm sorry to let you know that in the interim, by the time we reached the third date for our interview, that Landy Gardner passed away. It was very It was just very, very sad, actually. Landy Gardner was a man bigger than life and a great, kind soul. And you'll hear in the interview with his daughter Dionne how I had very little exchange with him, but what a deep impression he made on me. And Dionne decided that she'd like to still come on and do the interview with me today. And I have to say to you, I'm so very glad that she did. Landy Gardner and his daughter Dionne are rare people. Both are talented interior designers and both are giving, extraordinary individuals. I enjoyed this conversation so much, and I hope that you will as well. Dionne and I talked about how she started working for her dad, the lessons that she learned from him, and how she will lead his company and continue his legacy with the help of her team. And I am very privileged and happy to introduce you to Dionne. Hi, Dionne. Thanks so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
Thank you, LuAnn. I'm so glad to be able to be here with you.
I am too. And it's funny because I would love to share off the bat that we are it's a little bittersweet for you and I right now. We initially met back in September when I was scheduled with you to interview you in a joint interview with your dad, Landy. And just under 2 weeks ago, at the time that we're recording this, your dad passed away.
Yes.
Yeah. And so the thing about it is that's to have that to happen, we had to reschedule. And to have that happen in any situation is unusual, and it sort of checks you and makes you realize that, nothing is promised us, right?
That's true.
But the thing is, for me, and I just expressed to Dionne off air, is that I had a maybe tops 15-minute conversation with your dad, Landy, while you were trying to get the technology squared away in the background at your office, and so that we could record 3 of us on the interview. And it was one of the best 15 minutes that I have had in a year and a half of doing this podcast, honest to God.
That is absolutely flattering to me, and also not surprising, because my dad, he made the best first impression. He made the best 500th impression.
Yeah.
He was just that kind of man, and that infectious in his joy of life and his passion for his work. It was like it just emanated from him. So
it did.
I'm not surprised, but it's very comforting to hear you say it.
Yeah. And I just said to Dionne again off air, I said, when I heard a week and a half ago that he passed, I immediately went to my computer to see if I had that recording. And unfortunately, I didn't keep it. And it was because it wasn't a recording that was going to go to air. And so I the whole thing with storage on computers and the audio takes so much space. And I am so sorry, because it was... The thing about it is that, like I said, it's when anything like that happens with an acquaintance, right? Because that's all Landy was to me, was an acquaintance. It jars you, but he really, he truly, in 15 minutes, it was so apparent what a huge-hearted man he was. We clicked immediately. We were laughing. We were commiserating about the technology. And at one point he said to me, "It's too bad this isn't going to end up on the show." And I said to him, "You are so right." And I swear to goodness, if I had that recording, I would have played it and cut it into this show, because it really was special. And the whole point of the interview that we originally were going to do with you, Dionne, was the way and talk about the reality of working for these last 17 years in business with your dad. And so it was going to be one dynamic of the 2 of you sharing the perspectives from old school to new school, and, father and daughter. And that would have been one conversation. And now today, we're going to do the conversation a little bit differently. So it'll be a little through the filter of your recollections of his impressions. I'm sure you can have some things where you could share with.
Oh, yes. And on other things, I'll just tell you the impression I want you to have of him.
He's hysterically laughing at that right now.
He thinks that's funny. He thought I was hilarious. I don't know. I think by accident sometimes I ended up being funny, but it wasn't usually planned.
Oh, man. Well, I have to say, another guest, too, that I have interviewed on the show, Chad James, your father was his mentor, and the tributes that I've read that Chad has shared in social media about your dad just really also confirmed. I mean, for me, when I read Chad's tribute to your father, I just thought, well, that's exactly the man I met in 15 minutes. That's exactly who he was. Yeah. So you're very lucky. So let's talk about this a little bit. So he had this firm, and the firm is more than 40 years in business. It's certainly a powerhouse, established firm there in Nashville, Tennessee, and you have been in it for, like we said, 17 years, working side by side with your dad. Tell us a little bit about what is it can you think back, Dionne, to when you came into the firm and started working for your dad? Were there times and moments when you went, "Oh, this is how Dad does things here. This is the Landy Gardner way"? Anything?
Yes,
yeah. Okay.
absolutely.
Good.
Well, when I came to work for my dad, he'd actually had an employee unexpectedly quit, just like walk out that day. She had a husband that had some health problems, and I think that it was just more than she could handle at the time. And so she basically tearfully said, "I have to go." And my dad was like, "Oh, okay, you can go." And she was like, "No, like permanently." And so
it's like, you could have the whole day off.
Right. She left, and I had just moved home to start planning my wedding. And my dad called me and he said, "Dionne, I need help. Like, I just lost an employee. Even if you could just come answer the phones or help me take notes when I'm in a client presentation or something. And I was like, well, sure. I mean, I'm home and I'm doing nothing. And frankly, I'm not a good do nothing person. I love to be busy. So I came in, and it was almost that exact moment you just iterated, which is when I had been there for about 3 days, I thought, oh my gosh, I had no idea what my dad really did, what this amazing process looked like to get to a finished product, which my dad was always great to take my mom and my sister and I to finished houses and just let us see it. And he used to joke with me because he and I are a lot alike in that we're extremists. Everything's either the best thing or the worst thing that's ever happened. And my mom and my sister are much more like, oh yeah, that's beautiful, very level.
Now I also know why I hit it off with him immediately.
So every time he would take me to a house, I would just start crying. I was like so overcome with the beauty of the house. So when I started working for him and realized what sort of discipline it required to turn out a product that was that effective and that made you feel a certain way, that was moving, just this inanimate space became somehow warm and alive and intimate, and you want to be in a room and sit and just soak everything in. I was so impressed. It was like, Dad, my gosh, you're amazing. Like, you didn't already know this? Well, not this way, exactly. So I had so much admiration for the way I watched him work and how tireless he was, because it was really all he wanted to eat, sleep, breathe was this business that he had such a passion for. And each client, it was personal to him. No house has ever just been a house. I mean, my dad, I think the strongest piece of business advice he ever gave me was, Dionne, relationship is everything. Because if you don't know your client, you don't know how to build an environment for them. You have to give them the place that feels natural to them to make their memories, to entertain their friends, to have family dinners, to grieve in times of loss, to rejoice in times of victory or accomplishment. Like, you have to know people well enough to go, this is the framework that will fit them and will allow them to live their life the way they live their life. So I think there were so many facets of watching him work that and to this day, after 17 years, I would watch him whenever he was really intent on pulling a room together, and he'd be like, Dionne, come help me. I need this and this and this. And we'd be kind of buzzing around. We had this great way of sort of navigating space around each other. It was sweet. But I could always tell the very moment that he found the one thing that it was like, this is it. This is, I'm building everything off of this, because it excited him and it made him all of a sudden have an inspiration, have a little spark of something that he could then build on. And I never got tired of watching that, ever.
That's amazing. It really is. I mean, there's two things that you said in there that really hit home for me, is that you admired the way he worked. So you had already come from growing up and being able to see the finished product of all the different spaces that he designed. But when you started to work for him, you realized that he also had a very specific way of working, and you admired it, right? Because, the thing is, there's a lot of designers that create beautiful spaces, but the A to the, X, Y, Z. So what's Y? A to Y. Yeah. A to Y is chaos. Yes, you know what I mean? True. And then Z is, woo, isn't that amazing? And then everybody
it fell into place.
Right. Yeah. Like that whole process was, horrible, but Z is awesome. Let's just do it again. You know what I mean? So for you to come in and have long admired the finished product, but then to be, I imagine a young adult at that point and working with them and realize that the whole process of it was also to be admired. I think that's amazing. That's a gift, because a lot of, you would have loved him still. You would have appreciated his work still, and you probably would have worked there still, or maybe you only would have helped him out a little bit and said, okay, this place is too crazy pants for me. But you know what I'm saying? So I love that. And I also love that you said that your dad said that, Dionne, relationship is everything.
Yeah.
And the way you describe that, it makes it sound so like, of course that's right. If we, really don't take the time to understand the motivations and the desires and the things that are important to our clients, how can we leave them with a space that isn't just beautiful, but that is also for them? And
that's
right. Okay.
And I've seen, so many designers, great designers who have their specific aesthetic. That's what they do. If you hire them, what they bring to the table is their look.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing that I thought was the biggest compliment to my dad is that if he had clients who were friends and ended up being in each other's homes and didn't realize that my dad had been involved in the project, they would say, "This place is remarkable. Who did it?" And when the client would say Landy Gardner, they'd be like, "Oh, of course." Because no one had the exquisite eye for detail and everything being just so. There was a thread of excellence, a thread of quality, but never an identifiable marking that was his, because he would tell me, "It's not my house. I want to control the vision so that the end result is beautiful, but this has to be about the client."
Right.
And so every project, I know you had said earlier, you looked at our website, you can see there's no room that has a theme or,
Right.
some commonality running through. When you look from room to room, they're each individual, and it's because they're created with a client in mind, not with your own branding in mind, which I think is what it made my dad remarkable.
And that almost became the Landy Gardner brand, actually.
It was. It absolutely was.
Right? Just the not having a look, but having that it's almost a gift to every client that the space is truly for them. I like it. I like it a lot. Okay. So now tell me a little bit about some of those processes that your dad had in his firm already and that you maintain today in the firm. Because at this point, you've been in the business all these years, and obviously you had an expectation. Your dad was probably for many years grooming you to take the firm over, right?
That was always the plan. I wasn't ready to do it without him. But sometimes you don't get to pick the path and how things happen. But that was always, for the last 10 years, we had talked about that. "Dionne, this will be your business someday, and I love that you have a great eye," or "I love that when I'm stuck on something, you are like, 'Dad, put this texture in there. It needs this.'" Or, we always conferred with each other and checked each other about things we were working on, which was so much fun. And then in the last 5 years, when I started taking on more of my own design projects, at first I would get a presentation to where I thought, okay, I would be impressed with this if I were looking at it. And then I'd get him and I'd be like, okay, everything I need to know about this presentation is going to be based on what his first impression of it is. And so, I don't know, we had that great collaborative dynamic. And the thing that again, it goes back to this process of his that I admired. As many years as he had been in this business, if he were looking for a fabric, say he had, all of the fabrics built in a room, but he needed some kind of beautiful pattern that would, just give a little bit of drama or give a little unexpected accent, he wouldn't just go look through fabrics and find one and think, "Oh yeah, that's good." He would literally, I am not kidding, take entire stacks out of, because we have all of our library organized by genre. So there's velvets, there's patterns, there's linen prints, there's, everything's sort of categorized so he has access to it easily when he's looking for something specific. And he would literally take every single fabric out of that section. Even if he thought he had found one he loved, he would exhaust the possibilities, because he just felt like that is what it means to be committed to this project being its best. Is I can't stop at the first fabric I see that could work. I have to look at every fabric available to me in this library and make sure it's the best one.
That's pretty crazy.
And
yeah.
It was crazy. I would just start laughing that he would, like, stacks at a time, and he'd go through every one. And I was like, so now it's funny. I've been working today on dust skirts for bedrooms that we had worked on together. He had already kind of gotten the bulk of the rooms in place, and I'm now trying to do desk skirts in some of these rooms that we worked on together. And I found myself getting entire stacks out and going through every single, like, okay, this one looks really good, but what if there's one I missed? And
Okay, Dad, I'll keep looking.
I have not stop until I've seen every fabric in here.
Aw.
So I loved that because it always told me he never got complacent. He never just assumed that the easiest find was the best find.
Well, and the truth about that is, Dionne, I'm sure that there were dozens of times that the first find was a very beautiful find and nobody would have been the wiser and the room would have been, very lovely. And it's not like you would have skimped on quality or presentation or anything. You're just talking about, like you said, somebody that never lost their enthusiasm and energy for the complete best thing. And
it's true.
That's pretty admirable because I have to say
those hours,
No, you're right.
Clients aren't privy to that information. It's just what caused my level of respect for him to be so high, because I watched that he wasn't satisfied when he just thought, yeah, that'll work. It just, he didn't operate that way. I'll tell you another thing I loved about and again, what you don't know about my dad is he has a biochemistry degree. He was going to go to medical school, which of course would have been such a travesty.
Wow.
But he's got this left brain, right brain thing. Like, he's so dedicated and so disciplined and so detail driven, and yet he has this brilliant artistry and genius with color and texture. I mean, he had the best eye for color of anybody I've ever seen, and I'm so glad I got to work closely with him because he would make me pick paint colors. And he was like, okay, Dionne, there's like 100 colors of white. And I could see it, the longer I was with him, I was like, nope, too pink, nope, too green, nope, too, he would kind of force me to interpret color the way he did, which I now consider a huge gift. But because of this natural inclination to discipline and order, and he always said there has to be a start and there has to be a finish, like none of this leaving things open-ended. He couldn't stand that. And a couple of months ago when we were in New York together, all of these years I've been with him, I was always the one that made his shopping list. So whenever he would have several projects going at one time, and he was like, I need a great table here, I just haven't found it yet, or I don't want a new coffee table, I want to find something really interesting, maybe vintage. And so he'd say all these things and we would talk it out. And then if he were going on a buying trip, I would literally sit and color code his shopping list according to furniture, art, lighting, soft goods, like whatever it was. And he always approached the shopping thing exactly the same, no matter what he was looking for or who it was for. And so we were in New York together a few months ago, and he took me to the D&D and said, okay, I'm going to show you how I shop this building.
Wow.
Because you're going to be here with your own clients, and you're going to need to be confident that you can navigate this. And I mean, of course, I'm like, Dad, I know these people. I've spoken to them on the phone for 17 years.
I'm a grown woman. I've done this a couple of times.
But it was sweet to me that it wasn't, he didn't take it for granted that because I had done it, I might not feel more secure if I did it that way.
Right.
And we literally started on the top floor of the D&D, and he just let me navigate each floor. If we would see things we both thought were interesting, he would grab a tear sheet. He ended up using several things that I loved for clients. In fact, there's a little bronze nest with marble eggs in this office that I covet, and I picked it out, and then he sold it. But, we hit every single floor, LuAnn. It was like this method where he felt very satisfied that we had seen the best of everything. We had hit every showroom. We had this little map, top to bottom of that whole building. We did every floor, every showroom, and we made our notes, and we got our ideas together and our inspirations together and took pictures of pretty pillows with a trim detail that he might want to use later. And I loved that he just pounded the pavement with me and said, this is how I do this. So I know I've been thorough and I'm not disorganized in my thought process about, I'm buying for 5 different clients.
So,
and I have to keep all that clear.
Can we tear that apart a little bit? Can we break that up? So is it possible? I mean, because I'm sure many designers are like, okay, that's amazing as a system, but what is it? so, I mean, look, I've been to the D&D building a billion times in my lifetime here. And I've spent 5 hours there and thought, well, I've gotten to 5 showrooms. Like, you know what I mean? Sure. So when you tell me that you are starting out, so let's break it down a little, if you don't mind. Okay. Because I think this would be valuable lesson for a lot of people. So, you start with a color-coded binder. Let's say in this particular case, you have, say, 5 clients that you're on a buying trip for, and you have all those different categories, like you said, coffee table, rugs, probably, lighting, vintage, whatever your categories are. And then you start at the top floor. Are you able to explain it to us and exactly how the system works and how you would categorize and look?
It's a pretty unsophisticated system.
Well, but it sounds like if you get through 17 floors.
It did for him. So say, I don't know, let me try to think of a specific example. Like this one client that we're working with, they are very mid-century. So those showrooms are going to be different from, say, someone who's built a Tuscan beach house. There's obviously, and this is another thing remarkable about my dad, and he did pass this on to me. We both have really great memory. So even though he could be shopping for 6 different clients, like some people would go to a showroom and the perfect table might be there, but they can't separate in their brain all of those different things going on at the same time that they're trying to be mindful of. Right. So it'd be like, crap, there was a table upstairs and I forgot to take a picture or whatever because I was focused on another client.
Right.
And he wasn't like that.
But it sounds like you sort of categorized it. Like it sounds like if you walked into a showroom that was more mid-century, you then mentally, like even if you had to go to your book, okay, so we have these 2 out of 5 clients that are looking for mid-century.
Exactly.
Okay, that's a system right there. I love that, as opposed to just running in circles.
No, he never ran in circles because he had so much energy, but he never wasted any. He always was very intentional in the way because that's the way he was the most efficient. And you could do the D&D building 3 times and not find everything you want if you don't have some way to get your brain around it and knock things out diligently. Right. And so it would be, he wouldn't even go into a certain showroom if we weren't looking for modern. Right. If it was a modern showroom, then that's a waste of time. But if one of the 5 clients you're shopping for has modern, then okay, I'm going to hit that showroom just to see if there's anything in there appropriate for this client. So it was his method always, I think, was more about this style is where we're going with this house, and these are the places I know offer the best of that. And then he hit those places with his list and could say, I need a table, a lamp, and a sideboard. So he kind of subcategorized it for himself. Yes.
But that's intentional. In other words, I don't just need furniture and decor that's, Tuscan or mid-century. I need a table and a coffee table. You know what I mean? Like to have it written in front of you and what you're doing. And then it sounds like when you would find a piece, you would either get the tear sheet on it or you would take a picture of it, and it probably went into the, notebook or whatever the binder you were carrying and so forth.
Well, it was never a binder, just so you know. He has manila folders, legal size folders for each client. And then this just typed Word document with the color coding of which, thing he was looking for.
This is why I wanted to talk with him. It was going to be the old school. Yeah.
The execution was way better than the preparation, but he did always almost get tear sheets because he wanted dimensions on everything. And most of his shopping list, he would sketch out, like if there was a niche, we were looking for a piece of art, he would sketch his little niche with the dimensions so he wouldn't miss it. I don't know. He was just mindful of everything
that's works. It. Intentional. It wasn't haphazard. It wasn't I'm going to New York and I've got 3 days and let me walk in circles for 3 days.
Right. If he was looking for light, in fact, he would sometimes even separate lighting onto its own buying trip because that's sort of an overwhelming thing. And he always said that's a deal breaker in a house. It doesn't matter how beautiful your fabrics are. It doesn't matter. It would be like wearing, $20 shoes with a Chanel suit. You don't accessorize with things that are not at the highest caliber, that it has to reflect in the house that not only the light fixtures, but the way those fixtures light a room, that's a deal breaker.
Mm.
So lighting was a big deal to him, and we would treat that as a completely separate component.
Interesting.
Which is, very interesting.
Yes, and it's nice. This is good information because you guys run a big firm there with clients, in not only in Nashville but all over the U.S., San Diego, Jackson Hole, everywhere. You always, I'm sharing with everybody what I already understood from our off-air conversation, that this is a firm that always has projects going on in other parts of the U.S. So
Yes.
a lot of designers are very fortunate to have a design firm that does their business in the area they are, and over the years has one or two projects outside of that area. Maybe a client has a vacation home or a relative or something like that. But your firm is different in that you always have these other national projects going on in addition. Yeah. Okay.
We do. And my dad always has. I can't actually remember a time from my earliest memories of working here that we didn't have multiple cities going on.
And that requires a lot of organization.
Travel.
Yeah.
It does, which is why I think our partnership was so strong, because I could manage things here and he could be free to manage job sites and projects in other cities, or he would send me to the other city and then he'd be here to manage things going on here. So I think that's part of what made what we did together such a success, was that we, A, had tremendous respect for each other, B, we totally trusted that the other person was going to do it the right way, and C, we had the freedom to create without it being just heavily on one person's shoulders or the other. It was a shared responsibility and a shared love.
So that begs the question now, Dionne. You have big shoes to fill, and I don't know. I know that you intend to take this firm and carry on the way you and your dad planned, but what are you thinking now? It sounds like, and we can talk a little bit more later about some of the other systems that you learned from your father, but you have a firm that sounds like it's well rooted in the way it does things, the intentional way that it does things. But so much of it was the back and forth between the two of you, and I've got this and you've got that. Tell me about what's going on in your mind now as you look to the future and you look to carrying this firm on and honoring what you and your dad have created together. How do you see yourself so that you bring that same level of excellence to the projects going forward?
Well, I think that's a twofold question.
Okay.
I think that, for one thing, I have a team at this office that my dad assembled and invested in and mentored for many, many years before his passing.
Okay.
So we all have a trust level for each other, and we are confident in each other's abilities, and we're not divided in our vision to make sure this firm is even more successful and accomplishes some of the dreams even my dad wasn't able to accomplish, but that I knew he had and hoped for us. I am definitely not a person who has to be alone. I have no ego about this process whatsoever. I think sometimes you are sharpest when you are willing to ask another person to help you work through something, or help be objective about something if you are too close to it and you've been looking at it for 3 days and you just can't get over a hump. I mean, I think that's what made my dad great, is that no matter how incredibly successful and talented he was, he always asked for a second eye. And I don't ever plan to feel like I'm having to do this by myself.
Okay.
Because the people that are in place with me here are people my dad trusted that way, and they want us to carry on. They want us to win. And I trust them. And, we do, you and I talked a little off air, we do have another designer that's been with us for about 15 years, and he'll be a huge asset to me to be able to share the responsibilities of these jobs so that our clients never suffer any kind of sacrifice in their service, any kind of sacrifice in their deadlines being met. I mean, there's, I have a huge move going on right now.
I can hear it in the background.
But, it's not for me to have control of every single thing. I trust the people my dad had set in place to control the part of the process that is theirs, and I know it'll be done right.
It's you know what? I don't doubt for one second that you're going to be able to do it. I mean, between, what your father, who he was, how he ran his business and his life, how he inspired and instilled that into you, and the conversation with you and the lessons that you've learned from him. And the thing is, and I'll just finish that sentence. I don't have any qualms whatsoever that you will honor his legacy and you will bring every little bit of what he would have brought to every future client that you have. So I have complete confidence. Yeah, no, I could totally hear it. And I just said I'll finish my sentence and I'll go to the other thought, and now I forgot the other thought. But it was really good, though.
Well, that compliment is humbling to me, but I'm grateful that you would say that. I know you don't know me that well either, and sometimes you have to let walls down really quickly when you're in this type of situation. But I feel very confident I can do what my dad wanted me to do. And he set it up for me to succeed. He really did. And I will say, all of my clients felt so comfortable with me as an equal partner in his process that I think it will feel seamless for them. I mean, they'll miss him. We'll all miss him. But I don't feel like they think, oh gosh,
right, the place is
kind of
gone
back
kaput.
At square one with who we turn to for these decisions. I mean, every one of them. I started an installation of a house we've been building for 2 years, 4 days after my dad passed away. And everybody was like, oh my God, Dionne, why are you doing this? Why? And I said, because I have to get my hands in what we were doing together before he passed. I need to do this. It felt good for me to be in an environment where I felt him close, where I could look around and see all these beautiful things that needed to find their home, needed to be set up. And, I take joy in that. And I'm a hard worker. I'm borderline workaholic. So it may take me a little longer at first to do the genius he could do so easily because it was just in him to do. But if my dad had confidence in a person, it meant that person was worthy of that confidence. And I can just tell you, my dad believed in me, or he never would have groomed me to be in this position when the time came. And so I'm actually excited. I'm very energized about the future because I feel the support of this community and I feel the support of our clients. And I know they're going to feel like they still have a part of him.
Yeah. I'm not often at a loss for words on this show, I have to say, but every time you say something, I just find myself thinking, it's, and you're right. We don't know each other that well, but the truth is it was this way when I met you for the first time on September 6th, and it was this way when we started this conversation today. And I'm 100% sure that everybody listening is going to feel the same way. There's just this is a completely different sentences, completely different questions, completely different answers, but it's completely the experience I had talking with your dad.
Oh, thank you.
It is.
Well, that's the biggest compliment you could ever give me.
Yeah, now his spirit shines right through you. It really does. Yep, it really does. So tell us a little bit about the systems now that you were so impressed with. We talked about the system at the D&D, but what about...
I love that.
I know. I never heard anybody actually describe a system for shopping. Yes. And you know what makes me realize that there's probably others out there that have it, and I should maybe think of it as one of my questions to ask people. Do you have a system for shopping at a big design center, right? Because it's overwhelming to walk into a big design center. Matter of fact, I was in Las Vegas Market this past summer there to do a presentation with Kelly Ellis at the Kravitz showroom, and somebody, I guess was interviewed on another podcast, and he said to me, what are you loving about the market? And I'm like, I'm not going to the market. Like,
that's not why I'm there.
I'm like, I'm so glad that I don't have to do that.
Right.
Everybody here is like, oh my God, did you go to that showroom? Did you go to this? I'm like, no, I walked in. I had a presentation at Noir. I had a presentation at Cravat. I hung out with my designer besties, before and after. That's it. Like you guys, God bless you. You know what I'm saying? That's all I can say. It's one thing to enjoy it and to just walk around and revel in it. But then there's the other layer of having to convert that into actionable, intentionable work at the end of it. I'm like, yeah, no, I have no desire to do that. Thank you.
Well, and I guess that's why we all excel in our little niche of the world, is because you have to be built for it.
Right.
And my dad and I are just built for it. We could have spent all day looking around for nothing because we both get so excited about furniture and fabrics. And oh my gosh, we're both tactile. We love texture and we love to feel things. So it was, we could have easily done it with no
for no
at
point,
all,
right? Yeah,
just for the fun,
right? Well, that was the thing. That was what was funny. They're like, "Oh, aren't you just like walking around for fun?" I'm like, "Where's the fun in that? There's no fun there."
No, I don't want to do that for fun.
I'm outing myself here, all my peeps here. It's the layer of admiration I have for you guys. I have to say, it really is. It really is. And I did the same thing when I was at Atlanta's Mart with Mark McDonough and Dixie and Sandra, and I'm trying to think who else was walking around with us. And I'm going blank. It's crazy. There's so many people we spent time with. And Nancy was there, and we were all walking around, and Leah was with us too. And we were all walking around, like we had to go into the market for something, and then they started wandering down hallways, and then next thing you know, we're in and out of every showroom, and I'm just like looking at them like, guys,
I don't want to do this.
There's no wine here. What are we doing?
I love it.
Oh, man. But anyway, all right. So tell us about running that team a little bit. Tell us about pick something that is particularly a great process that you have, whether it relates to doing a project that's out of state, or it just relates to a process that is something that the Landy Gardner Interiors firm does that is a superpower.
I think the biggest thing, because I don't know, I might be wrong about this, but I do think that most designers sort of have a similar way of getting from blank canvas to finished room. Their little quirks and preferences and how they start and what is the igniting factor might change. But I think pretty much, you start with nothing and you have to create something, and you have to create it in a way that this person's going to like and accept, and it's in their budget, or it's available within their deadline, or whatever. You're mindful of all of that. The thing that I would think would be the deal breaker between what I've seen other designers do and how they execute this process and my dad is that when we do an installation, it doesn't matter if it's a single room or an entire house. My dad used to say, I'm not piecemealing this room together, because if I take one chair and one sofa in there and it doesn't make sense with everything else in the room, then the client already has an unfavorable response. And so he would wait until the entire room was ready to go. And then he would shop for a day for lamps, or he'd go to the client's house previously and look at what art they had that could be useful. Or, sometimes he would say, I'm robbing Peter to pay Paul, because he went into the living room to take 2 tables into his new library, and now the living room has no tables, but they look better in the library. So he would sometimes just, get in there and pull from other rooms in the house, or say, can I move this beautiful urn in the dining room and put it over here? And this layering process for him always started with, I am not coming in there until the entire room can be set up and you walk in there and it takes your breath away. There was never this, oh yeah, the sofa came in last week, so we'll deliver that, and then 2 weeks later the chairs come, and then we'll start shopping for art. He literally had lamps, accessories, art, all of those things at least conceptually in mind before he ever delivered the room full of furniture, so that if it was a powder room and it needed a beautiful tray for hand towels, that was already there when the client saw the room for the first time. Or if you were doing a kitchen, there's fresh fruit in a bowl on the countertop as something beautiful to look at, but also something that makes it feel like a home. It's not a staging area. There are people going to come in here and pick up a banana after school or whatever.
Right.
I feel like his full service the level of his service, it was like you could literally walk into your own home, sit down, open a bottle of wine, and live. You didn't have to then go, oh my God, I got to go find a box of our family photos and put them out. I've got to go find this. And it was every single thing would have already been attended to. That's just how we worked. Every
Mm.
bookcase would be dressed. Every bedside table would be dressed. Every coffee table, that one accessory he might have been looking for months and months and months. If he found it, it would just be there. And then we would make an approval list. And anything that you had not signed approval on and paid a deposit on, that he just brought in to layer and to fluff, as we would say,
Mm.
those things were all put on a list with pricing, and we would say, this is your approval list. And these are not
Oh,
things that you had committed to purchasing, but these are the things Landy thought finished this room. And they would have the option
interesting.
of going, okay, I love those lamps, but, could we maybe find something a little better price range? Or, oh, Landy, this rug is beautiful. I'm definitely keeping that. Or this art is perfect here. Can we get a portrait light? Like, it just sparked the client thinking about, you don't want to undo that beauty once it's been done, and yet you don't want your client to feel obligated to something they didn't previously approve. So that's kind of how we always worked, and I think that installation method has always really impressed our clients. They've always felt like, wow, I come into this home and my mind is blown at how beautiful this could be, and they didn't see it in process. It was just like magic by the time they got there.
Right. And tell me about the mechanics of that. When you are if initially engaging with a client, you obviously you probably have a conversation and disclose that, the reveal day will include many items that aren't necessarily that have not necessarily been pre-approved, and you can negate any one of them if you want, but you probably are telling them ahead of time that that's going to happen.
He really didn't. He would tell
He was
them,
Landy Gardner. He didn't have to.
I mean, he would tell them, we do the whole installation ourselves so we can make sure everything's set up. And he said, I will bring accessories and stuff over to try. But most of the clients, by the time you've been in a process that long and you're ready to do
Right.
that
Okay.
final move in, we would be very clear at the point of unveiling the room that, listen, we have a full approval list for you here, and you need to know anything on this list that you didn't see or know about prior is
Right.
it's a
Extra
yes
charge.
or no question to you. You can say, yes, I want this. No, I don't want this. No, I don't
Right.
want this. Yes, I want this. You have that right of refusal. It's on approval.
Right.
But we didn't really talk about it at the beginning of the process, and I don't know why that is, except I guess
Well, I guess that
my
comes
dad was
with 40
sensitive about.
years of being in business, right?
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe you have the credibility to just say, we do things this way, and you can undo every bit of it if you want to and just keep the things you previously approved. But I'll tell you, nobody does that.
Right. But right.
Because it's always so perfect. It's like, oh my
Sure.
gosh, well, now I can never unsee this room this way.
Exactly. It's like trying on the perfect dress, and then somebody says you can't have it. It's like, no, 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 I want that one though. So the thing is, for a less experienced firm with a less lengthy track record, I would think that you could aspire to that and you could aim to be that sort of firm. But maybe in the beginning, Dionne, would you say that they would have to be more likely to talk about it a little bit? It doesn't have to be, I'm not saying we have to write a contract in blood, but to talk more about, my process is that
Yes.
I will put everything in the room, but I love to be able to let you envision what this space really could be if it were layered, as you said, and I will give you refusal. There will be a
Yeah.
very distinct list. So, I mean, I think that
I think it's a different world
yes,
now.
yes, right,
I do. And I think, like you said, it's true that probably his 40-year career is what lent him that level of trust with his clients and not having to over-explain. I know a lot of clients that have come to us over the years have said, I worked with another designer, and I felt surprised all the time. Like, all of a sudden we'd move in and this chair would be there that I'd never seen and never approved, and I'd be getting an invoice for it. And I'm like, wait a minute, what if that's not the chair I wanted? What if I would have preferred that be in dark green instead of blue? Like, and people don't like surprises. So I
Right.
think if you're still earning credibility, you absolutely need to have some forethought about how you're going to execute that day and talk it through with your clients so they don't feel taken advantage of, or they don't feel like you're pressuring them.
Right.
That it's just your way of putting those added touches in that you think are important and make the room feel finished, and they're not obligated to it, but you just want the opportunity to show them the way you envision the room.
Right.
I think that's important up front.
Right. I agree. And the truth is, I'm thinking about it, Dionne, this could be done at no matter what level of interior design your firm specializes in, right? If you're a designer that typically your price point, you're accessorizing from retail, showrooms and retail outlets, you could still accessorize the space from those places and then have your list. But that's the other thing right there, though. I think that's a very important thing, that it should not be loosey-goosey. It should not be, I put all of these accessories in here and, hey, live with them for the weekend. Let me know what you want. And then whatever you want, I'll make up an invoice for. It's like present, right? Present at the time. You have your list of things, the price right on it. Yes, no, write me a check and thank you very much, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, not only that, but I do think a lot of young designers make the mistake that they don't feel like they need to hone their business sense as much as they need to hone their talent, because essentially what they're selling is their talent. But the deal breaker for most people is, can you meet a deadline? Can you stay within a budget? And can you have yourself and your team organized enough that you make me feel secure when you come into this house? I don't think the burden of responsibility should ever be on a client. Hey, I didn't write down all those accessories I put in your room, but if you don't recognize something, it must be mine. And do you want to keep it? I mean, I think that just makes a person feel insecure.
Right.
And it gives a lot away about your level of experience and expertise too.
Right.
So I think the real thing is just covering all of those bases by being clear about how you want to do things. Doesn't have to be the way we do them. Some people might come up with an equally great method. I just think it's important to know what that method is and know why you're doing it, why it's important, and how to keep your head around all those details so that when someone asks you, you always have a professional answer. You're not ever put on the spot, and you're not ever putting your client on the spot.
Right. I love it. I think it's great. I mean, and you can visualize it much easier how much more simple you make it for the client to go through with the purchase if the price is right there. You know what I mean? It's like like you said it. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. So I love that little lesson in process. That's pretty interesting. It takes a lot of, well, you described it a couple of times, how your firm has such attention to detail, because to do a reveal install takes an incredible amount of coordination and detail. Yeah. So,
it does, but we do it that way every time. And I think it makes a difference in how the client sees their home.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. I know designers, I've worked with designers that have done both ways, and it's hard. On some of the projects that we've been on, I can think of a couple of really big projects out in the Hamptons where there's one project I'm thinking of in the Hamptons. It had to be 20 rooms of draperies. Well, that's going to take me a week to install. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
And then if I get there and I'm working around the person who's delivering the furniture, and then the third day I'm working around the person who's making the beds, and the fourth day the person who's putting the accessories up, that 5-day install for us, we're like, send 3 more guys tomorrow.
I know. Well, it's funny because I've been in the house with my drapery workroom all this week when I've been moving this house, and she said to me, Dionne, you know how much I loved your dad, and you know how much respect I have for him. She said, but did you know this is the first time I've ever gotten to get all my draperies in before you started moving furniture in, and I could just lay everything out on the floor and make sure it was steamed out, and I wasn't being climbed all over by any workmen. And I was like, oh, good. I'm glad it was a good experience. Because, you start thinking about, I don't feel that anybody's going to be scrutinizing me and comparing me to my dad. However, it's sort of not, that's going to be inevitable that people are going to size me up and see how I do compared to the way he did it. And so, when you've got an artisan that does draperies for you and you've worked together for almost 20 years, you want the experience to be good and protective of them too, so they can do their best work. I just think it makes all of us look good if we're all in a position to do our best work.
Right. And you're right. You are on the spot here. You are in the limelight here. Not, and the truth is, it's, as you said, not just with your clients, but with all of your vendors as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're exactly right like that. So, but look, I'm not one bit concerned about you.
Thank you.
I am not. I mean, you just, you really, look, you're a grown-up businesswoman. Let's be serious. You had your father there, and that's probably a big presence, a big life force, and it was a big, it's a big shadow there. But he also struck me in the little bit that I knew him of somebody that, like what you said about your team, I'm sure you learned it from your dad. You said it's not just you, it's your whole team that's going to move this company forward, and that together you're going to continue this work that you guys have created. And I'm sure your dad is the one who taught that to you, that it takes a village to run a great company, not one person.
It absolutely does.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I'm so impressed by you, Dionne, and I'm really just share my deepest condolences on the loss of your father. Amazing, just a remarkable, rare human being.
Absolutely. I'm just lucky that he was mine, because I got to see everything behind the scenes and be in the front row seat for everything he ever did. And I'm a blessed girl to have had a father that was what he was. Yeah. And, and we shared him with so many people. And I'm so grateful that he affected so many people the way he did, because now they share that with me, and I'm comforted by that, and I'm proud of him. I'm proud of how many people loved him and how many people admired him, because he was on a pedestal with a halo around him in my mind. But when other people appreciate someone that you love that much, it means something to you.
Yes. Yeah, no, it should. And you know what? Take every second of it, because, you've earned it too. And I have to say, I would love for, a year to go by and you come back on the show and tell us about how the firm, because here's the thing, we're not even going to go into all of this, but we just did everything you learned from your dad, all of the things, the best parts, and a little bit of the systems that he had. But I know you're going to also morph this into something of your own, right? Yeah.
I will. I'll have to. Yes. I'll have to make it my process.
That's right.
Not that I mean.
No,
you're
really not going to scrap the baby with the bathwater, right?
Because it's natural for me to work that way. That's how I've been doing it alongside of him. So I know I won't totally change the method, but I do think that there are certain things that, like you said, they kind of morph over time as you get more comfortable and more confident doing things a little differently, or you use that as a foundation, and then something else might work better for me in some capacity. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I'd love that. I'd love nothing more than to come back and say, okay, listen to what the last year's been like.
That's it. I would love it too.
There's a lot already, on my plate between now and then. I will be doing all of the design for a beach house that we have going on in California. I'll be doing, I had a client come in today and say, we had just gotten plans for a screen porch and a brand new terrace and a back hardscape that we wanted to build on. And we want you to help us. And I'm thinking, okay, this is great. I will get to continue the work on some of these houses that my dad's imprint is already there.
That's nice.
And, so yeah, there could be a lot to tell in a year.
Okay, I'm looking forward to it. You definitely, that's it. It's a date. We're going to do this again next year.
I'll put it on the calendar.
That's awesome. I can't tell you how much I admire you, and thank you for coming on to the show and just sharing your heart and your memories of your father and the inspiration that he's been to you, and to sharing some of the insights of this amazing business that the two of you have built together. Thank you so much, Dionne.
Thank you, LuAnn. I really appreciate it. I'm honored to have been able to have a little time with you and with your listeners.
I said it during the interview. It was very bittersweet, wasn't it? Dionne takes very seriously the business that she has inherited, and as she said, sooner than she would have liked. The relationship that she has had with her dad was very special, and you can hear how much she cherishes the gift that she has had of working with him, learning from him, creating beautiful spaces with him, and building this exceptional interior design firm with him. I can hear that Dionne embodies all that Landy was and all that he taught her, and I am, for one, very happy to have a front row seat to watch her not only continue his legacy, but to watch her put her stamp on it as well. Dionne, wishing you and your family, your team, peace and comfort as you travel this new road together. So everybody, listen to me. Just a quick note before we go. There's a lot of new things coming for us in the quarter of 2018. Joint coaching, one-on-one coaching, interior design masterminds. If you are looking to get your business started on the right foot in 2018 and on track for a profitable and productive year, then please get on the email list so that you know what's going on and you will be able to figure out which offering is best for you and for your interior design business. Text 444-999 and enter the word Design Biz, DESIGNBIZ, no caps, no spaces, 444-999. The coaching, the masterminds, the one-on-one is all going to be virtual, so no matter where you are in this world, you'll be able to take advantage of it. That's the show for today, everybody. Thanks so much for joining me for this special episode. Have an excellent day. Thank you for joining me again today for another episode of A Well-Designed Business. This podcast is a production of WindowWorks in Livingston, New Jersey, your trade resource for custom window treatments and awnings. Learn more about WindowWorks at www.windowworks-nj.com. All of our music is original music by Room 2 Productions. Please contact us if you want to learn more about original music for your business or your events.